That's the question. One might surmise that the spirits that haunt us are simply our deepest fears.
Welcome to MojoPlays. Today, we're looking at 10 times Assassin's Creed was historically accurate.
Kausos was consumed by plague. We couldn't keep up with the bodies. It was spreading.
They get just as much stuff right as they get wrong.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Blackbeard's death. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Nothing round this spot, sadly. But there's a few wrecks yonder that ain't been scoured by nothing but crabs and coral.
Arguably the most famous of all the pirates, Blackbeard roamed the high seas for barely 2 years in the end. But his mark on history has been clear, and he was one of Kenway's closest pirate allies throughout the events of Black Flag. Kenway's even there fighting the British alongside him during his final battle against them. Unfortunately for the heroes of the game, Blackbeard's fate was already sealed. Kenway tries his best, but he's fighting just as many sailors. Blackbeard is decapitated, just as he was in real life. However, the game cuts out the bit afterward where the British paraded his head around as a trophy.
No noise, sense.
The Sistine Chapel. Assassin's Creed 2.
Factorem celi et terrae, visibilium omnium et invisibilium.
It's one of the most famous works of art, not just in Italy, but in the entire world. It depicts various religious scenes, with the most recognizable being the creation of Adam fresco in the center. However, when Ezio visits the Sistine Chapel during Assassin's Creed 2, the ceiling is completely blank. So what gives?
Consubstantiarem patri, prequem omnia facta sunt.
Well, though we can't doubt that it was tempting for developers to forego historical accuracy and add the familiar paintings anyway, in the end, authenticity won out. Ezio visits the Vatican in 1499, 9 years before Michelangelo started work on the paintings, which is why you only see the earlier contributions done by other Renaissance artists. The Plague of Athens. Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
It's usually Phoebe who does the delivering. At least I'm alive. Though I can't say the same for my city.
Roughly midway through Odyssey, you'll return to Athens only to encounter a terrible plague. The city is being ravaged, the dead are piling up in the streets, and Ubisoft put a green filter on everything in case you didn't understand otherwise the people are sick. The Plague of Athens in 430 BC was very real, however.
Kausos was consumed by plague. We couldn't keep up with the bodies. It was spreading.
In-game, Hippocrates believed that the disease is being spread through fecal matter, which aligns with the theories that it was typhoid. But in real life, archaeologists still aren't sure exactly what the plague was. A typhoid outbreak is still a leading theory, but it has some flaws, and others believe it could have been an early bubonic plague outbreak or typhus. However, in the real world, Pericles died of the plague, while in-game, he's killed by Deimos.
Pericles!
Dickens the Ghostbuster. Assassin's Creed Syndicate.
Which is why I joined the Ghost Club.
In AC Syndicate, you'll be given a string of side missions for Charles Dickens, already nearing the end of his life in the 1860s and firmly established as one of Britain's foremost novelists. But Dickens enlists the services of the Fry twins in ghost busting, investigating supernatural occurrences throughout London. And in real life, Dickens did spend most of his later life debunking the paranormal, outing phony spirit mediums and haunted houses.
There are claims that a young man was caged in the attic, his only connection to the rest of the world a tiny hole in the door.
He was one of the most famous members of the Ghost Club and was a member upon its founding in 1862. The Ghost Club still exists and operates in much the same way, investigating and debunking frauds.
We are a beacon of reason in a world beguiled by superstition.
Penguins, Assassin's Creed Rogue. When we started seeing gameplay for Assassin's Creed Rogue, which moved into the Arctic and tackled the 7 Years' War between Britain and France, people were baffled to see penguins on the rocks. Penguins, of course, only live in the southern hemisphere. Did Ubisoft forget this? No. Instead, they decided to include another kind of flightless bird in their game, the great auk. Great auks were hunted by humans to extinction in the 1800s, but Rogue is set in the 1750s, when the birds were still very much alive. They're also not too closely related to penguins, despite looking so much like them. Today, you'll only see great auks in museums, old drawings, or in this game. Shooting Robespierre, Assassin's Creed Unity.
Run, sir! We'll hold this lot until reinforcements arrive!
You are a hero of France,
He's here!
mon ami.
Get him!
Few historical figures are as complex as Maximilien Robespierre, who, along with some others, led the First French Revolution in 1789 and established the First French Republic. He eventually became nicknamed the Tyrant, thanks to his policy of the Reign of Terror, where the revolutionaries executed large numbers of people.
But if not, they'll need to hole up somewhere nearby. They won't get very far with half the city turned out against Robespierre.
By 1794, however, Robespierre's time at the top was done. The Hôtel de Ville was stormed, and Robespierre was arrested and sentenced to death. At some point, however, he was shot in the jaw. Historians don't know who exactly shot him, giving Ubisoft the opportunity to make his assailant Elise Delasere.
Where is Germain?
I will never talk.
Then right.
Richard the Lionheart, Assassin's Creed.
A great favor indeed. Now our enemies will be that much stronger in their convictions. Fight that much harder.
This famous king is still venerated in England as one of the most popular kings the country has ever had. But his true position in history is a bit more contentious. Richard I didn't actually enjoy being in England at all, despite being born there, and almost entirely spoke French, hence his French accent in-game. He was either in France or crusading the Holy Land, which is where Altair encounters him.
Some of my best men were murdered by some of yours.
It was I who killed them, and for good reason. Hear me out.
Ubisoft portrays the king with far more nuance than popular history, however, showing that he could be cruel both to his subjects and enemies, but was a successful military leader nonetheless. Altair even saves him from a potential assassination attempt.
This is what you fight for? Peace? Do you see the contradiction?
Atlantis, Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Time to take a dive.
Now, don't get us wrong, we're not saying that Atlantis is real with this one, but Ubisoft definitely did their research when it came to where to put Atlantis in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Atlantis was first mentioned by Plato in the 4th century BC, but Plato was never trying to convince anybody it was real. It was an allegory to warn about the dangers of hubris, as Atlantis is sunk by the gods in a devastating natural disaster as a form of punishment.
Greetings, Alexios. Welcome to Atlantis.
But there is a real story that could have inspired him. The Minoan eruption in roughly 1600 BC, which destroyed the advanced Minoan civilization on Crete. The eruption came from the volcano Thera, modern-day Santorini, and in Odyssey, Atlantis is underneath Thera's caldera.
This place is huge.
The Assassins, Assassin's Creed.
He'll teach you how to disregard everything the Masters taught us.
And how would you have done it?
I would not have drawn attention to us.
Though the franchise has all but abandoned its roots, at the beginning, it was inspired by the very real order of assassins that existed in the Holy Land during the Crusades. They operated much the same way as they do in-game, selecting powerful targets they viewed as their enemies and sending out agents to eliminate them throughout the Crusades. And Masyaf Castle really was their base for more than 200 years. The ruin also still exists in the modern-day city of Massif in Syria. The assassins themselves were eventually destroyed by sustained military action by the Mongol Empire in the late 13th century.
You did well to drive Robert from here. His force is broken. It shall be a long while before he troubles us again.
The Pyramids. Assassin's Creed Origins. You may be surprised to learn that there really are large pyramids located in Egypt, just like the game depicts. Alright, we're joking, but Origin's portrayal of the pyramids is extremely accurate to real life. In Bayek's time, the pyramids you see are brilliant white with golden tips, in stark contrast to how they appear today. But that's because when they were built 4,500 years ago, they were coated in white limestone and their points were covered in gold. Today, the pyramids are flat on the top, and Egyptologists believe that this is because the golden capstones, or pyramidia, have gone missing, though nobody knows how, when, or why. Stranger yet, Origins included a hidden chamber in the Great Pyramid, and after the game's release, such a chamber really was discovered.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, there's more where that came from.